Imagine a powerful energy already lying dormant within you, silent, coiled, waiting. The moment it awakens, it begins to rise through your subtle energy body, transforming every layer of your being. In the ancient yogic and tantric traditions, this force is known as Kundalini, a primal feminine energy called Shakti. The word Kundalini comes from the Sanskrit kundala, meaning coiled, and kunda meaning cavity or hollow. This dormant energy is often symbolized as a serpent, curled at the base of your spine, resting within your nervous system, hidden yet potent. When activated typically through deep spiritual practice, Kundalini begins to uncoil and surge upward through the chakras from the root at the base of your spine to the crown at the top of your head. As it moves, it reshapes your entire being, physically, emotionally, mentally, energetically, and spiritually. This isn't just a moment of insight, it's a total inner reconstruction. Your perception shifts radically from feeling confined by ordinary reality to embodying a vast eternal presence that has always lived within you. This awakening is both beautiful and unsettling. It can shake the foundation of your identity and may take years or even lifetimes to fully integrate. Yet this lifetime offers a unique opportunity, the possibility of full liberation. Thankfully, we're not alone on this path. Great saints, yogis, mystics, and lamas across history have mapped out this terrain, its trials, ecstasies, and revelations. By revisiting their teachings with both open-hearted curiosity and grounded discernment, we can gather the guidance we need to navigate our own awakening. In this enhanced course, we will investigate the whole historical map of Kundalini awakening in great detail. This map will cover the 7 main phases that have been detailed by transmissions from these knowledge lineages. In order to illuminate the road that lies ahead, we must first become acquainted with the entire landscape. At the beginning of the Kundalini awakening process, the dormant life energy that is inside us is sparked into action. It is this force, which is referred to as Kundalini, that is located close to the base of the spine and is waiting to become active. The awakening of this power is not a sudden occurrence, but rather a progressive process that takes place over the course of time. It is accomplished via constant spiritual practice. Building the momentum necessary to arouse the Kundalini energy can be accomplished by a variety of activities, including yoga, meditation, chanting, and prayer, among others. It is also possible that its initial movement will be triggered by unforeseen occurrences or spiritual experiences. As soon as the Kundalini energy is activated, it has profound repercussions and necessitates an unwavering dedication to the spiritual path. Once she awakens, there is no going back, because she will destroy all restricting constructs which will prevent us from accessing union mystique. Taking the plunge requires us to first establish beyond a reasonable doubt that we are truly interested in achieving freedom. The signals of initial waking are apparent and frequently spectacular, leaving no room for mistake that one has entered this beautiful yet hard inner territory. Strong energy currents, inner light, inner sounds, tingling sensations, intensity of bodily heat, and powerful trance states are some of the physical feelings that start to emerge. The release of muscular lockings and blockages causes the body to experience regular spasms and movements that are beyond the conscious control of the individual. In the process of consciousness beginning to enter the subtle reality that lies below the physical domain, these physical manifestations are referred to as kriyas. When the eyes are closed, visions that are visually bright and occasionally unpleasant may occur. In order to manage this massive flood of new bioelectricity, the nadis, meridians, and nervous system will need to go through a significant transformation from an energetic standpoint. Because of this surge of Shakti, the system will be short-circuited until it is reorganized in the appropriate manner. Because of this, it is necessary to perform bodily detoxification cleansing and preliminary groundwork in advance in order to prevent Kundalini from being overstimulated when it first breaks forth. In the absence of appropriate preparation of the neurological system, nadi channels and metabolic systems, premature chaotic rise can only result in conditions such as psychosis, neuropathy, and damage. When Shakti is awakened, she begins her sacred purgative work, which involves powerful confrontations with dormant bad behavioral patterns and traumas that have been ingrained throughout this and previous lives. Nothing is able to evade her unrelenting penetration. She pierces all false restricted identities, leaving behind only our eternal and unchangeable nature. Most aspirants, on the other hand, run the risk of being overstimulated and floundering like weak swimmers, who are tossed around in violent seas if they do not cultivate the wisdom and mental sensitivity that can be gained through years of hard training. In light of this, genuine spiritual accomplishment is extremely uncommon and can only be achieved gradually and with the grace of God. Therefore, in order to politely welcome the divine dancer into our inner temple, we need to unify our bodies, minds, spirits, and shadows through the discipline of having a sincere intention. Not via the window, but through the front door, she is waiting for permission to let herself in. We need to make genuine preparations in order to ensure that her job is beneficial rather than detrimental. Only after that will we be able to maintain our course through the lengthy and unpredictable journey that lies ahead of us. Consistently maintain your baseline health awareness and equanimity, and fasten your seatbelt. In the process of rising, the Kundalini energy begins to purge the body and mind of energetic pollutants as well as traumas that have occurred in the past. This procedure has the potential to be intense and may bring up memories and feelings that have been repressed. Remember that this is a natural part of the waking process and that the energy is trying to eliminate any obstructions that may be holding you back. It is crucial to keep this in mind. As the energy tries to clear out any density or congestion in the nadis and chakras, it may generate unusual feelings or movements in the body. This is because the energy is working to clear out the nadis and chakras. It is possible that you will experience extreme sensations of anger, grief, fear, or guilt on an emotional level when the energy lifts repressed feelings and memories to the surface for the purpose of release. It is essential to keep in mind that this procedure is indeed a sort of spiritual chemotherapy. Furthermore, it is essential to have faith in the process and to enable the energy to carry out its intended function. In addition, it is essential to take care of oneself at this period by engaging in self-care practices and, if necessary, obtaining help from loved ones or spiritual advisors. As the energy continues to flow, it will begin to restructure the chemistry of the brain as well as the nadi channels, which will allow for a higher capacity to deal with the increased voltage. There is a possibility that this will emerge as weird bodily sensations or changed states of consciousness. Although these may first be uncomfortable, they are an indication that major improvements are now taking place. It is important to keep in mind that the intensity of mystical experiences can express both physically and externally, and that feelings of identity anxiety are a typical response that occurs when the ego struggles with acknowledging its limitations. The understanding that this is a sign of the sacred descending force of the goddess changing your incarnation vehicle into a proper chariot of fire capable of crossing into trans-dimensional realities should provide you with some measure of consolation. In addition, it is essential to acknowledge that the process of purification can be intense and may make one feel as though they are experiencing agony. However, if you observe these feelings with attention and refrain from passing judgment on them, you can make it possible for ancient self-concepts that are confining to totally disintegrate into spaciousness. While the energy is working to eliminate pathological ego and restore sovereignty of the body, heart, and mind, you should have faith in the precision of the energy. In the end, the purpose of this procedure is to release you from the constraints of conditioned perceptual filters so that you can experience freedom that is beyond categorization because it is transparent and vast. You will be able to elevate other beings as the goddess reclaims her sovereignty in the world if you first take oxygen for yourself. In yogic parlance, the seed potentials of each chakra are referred to as siddhis, or mystical powers. These potentials become more apparent as the pranic flow becomes more intense. Through these awakenings, one is able to get access to realities that go beyond the usual senses and cognition. There is an increase in the frequency and vividness of inner visions, which opens gateways into the subtle dimensions. As it becomes more apparent that consciousness is the most important factor, the outward reality begins to take on the appearance of a mirage. It is possible that you will see light of a variety of colors emanating from people, animals, and objects, which will indicate that matter is a congealed form of consciousness. There is a possibility of gaining glimpses into both infinitesimally small microcosmic worlds and gigantic macrocosmic galaxies when one possesses heightened concentration abilities in conjunction with enhanced intersensory perception. The phenomenon of remote vision takes place spontaneously when awareness makes contact with the all-knowing quantum field that lies beneath space-time. This enables the Gestalt to take in any relevant information. There is also the possibility of having prophetic visions or precognitive dreams, which have the ability to guide the timing of future decisions. To a certain extent, some people are able to obtain telepathic access into other minds or subtle perceptions of identities from previous lives that are still energetically engraved upon the soul. Objects that are concealed within the psyche become apparent through direct perception. These obstacles can take the form of physical barriers, apparitions, or energy blocks, which are referred to as krantis. As your chakras become active, they bestow upon you particular siddhis that can be utilized in either a constructive or destructive manner, depending on the degree of ego purity that you possess. Because of this, it is essential to have a strong ethical basis and to transcend one's ego before obtaining such a large number of gifts that are loaded with shadows that are even more disguised. Many people, much like children, who have recently found that they possess superpowers, initially struggle with the enormous responsibility that comes along with holding such skills. They frequently allow themselves to become entangled with their ego, leading them to erroneously believe that their newly discovered abilities are an indication of their spiritual development. Maintain your sobriety and continue to be an objective, uninvolved witness to all of the inner and outside events without taking ownership of them or taking delight in them. As an alternative, you should channel blessings into selfless service while attentively testing insights before acting hastily upon or publicizing any direction. Maintain a constant search for self-aggrandizement, which will cause the compassionate bodhisattva vow to be distorted. Rather of giving in to narcissistic inclinations for the purpose of improving one's own self-importance or gaining personal gain, these dormant abilities are ordained into spiritual service through the practice of genuine humility and spiritual transcendence. One may only gracefully surf these momentary awakening waves without getting wiped out if they are able to recognize the inevitable rise and fall of all conditions through their perception. The actual breadth of the profound energetic cleansing process becomes apparent when the initial pleasure that comes with awareness begins to wear off. During this crucial period, which is frequently referred to as the night of the soul, the long and difficult trip that lies ahead, as well as the stark contrast between the challenges that are currently being faced and the spiritual growth that has occurred in the past, become brutally apparent. The word comes from Christianity, which was popularized by Saint John of Cross, a Spanish mystic and poet who defined his voyage through this psycho-spiritual abyss. However, the name stems from Christianity. In point of fact, almost all mystical paths acknowledge the requirement of this excruciating transitional journey through complete darkness prior to the resurrection into oneness consciousness. Allegorically speaking, when the layers are removed in their whole, the symbol depicts the death of egoistic attachment, completely followed by immortal rebirth as an ever-blissful primeval spirit. It is precisely because of the intensity of this annihilation process that enlightenment continues to be confined to a tiny number of people who are willing to let everything burn away, giving up the comforts of the known in favor of the endless unknown. In many respects, this surrender is analogous to intentionally confronting one's own mortality while still being physically alive. The reality of the soul indicates that genuine spiritual development necessitates a willingness to accept the death of the ego, which paves the way for a resurrection into a timeless, non-dual awareness. The complete abandonment of one's responsibilities as a homeowner is incompatible with the worldly obligations and connections that nevertheless require a healthy ego function. As a result, the Black Night plunges you into profound solitude and loneliness, even while you are surrounded by people who are unable to relate to this holy agony. In times of difficulty, the mystic is unfamiliar with anyone who is comfortable with their land. No matter how much effort was put in or how much grace was experienced in the past, all of the previous progress is resolutely erased here. In the process of awakening from its slumber, consciousness frequently comes face to face with a feeling of emptiness and meaninglessness in the world around it. This can be a difficult and unpleasant experience, but it is also an essential step on the path to self-realization and spiritual development. It is possible that the path that lies ahead may be challenging, yet those who have the courage to begin on it will discover that it ultimately leads to a more glorious dawn of consciousness and comprehension. As one travels along the spiritual path, they may encounter a number of dark nights that might last for years or even lives. This will need them to maintain steadfast discipline and determination. Loyalty to the spiritual road, which is frequently thankless, seems to persevere virtually against the true desire to alleviate the suffering, despite the fact that there is a temptation to forsake the route in favor of distractions from the world. Nevertheless, tenacity that is supported by profound insight and compassion finally pays off as grace sees dedication through each and every tumultuous season. Establishing connections with people who share similar experiences and who are also going through difficult times is a crucial source of optimism and highlights the importance of this stage in the process of achieving actualized oneness. As you travel the illuminated highway home together, heart to heart you come to the realization that you are not going alone, but rather in the company of saints. During the dark night, all false relationships are broken with the very concept of untruth. As everything fades away, the only thing that shines brightly is simple awareness, which has triumphed over the gulf of illusion for all of eternity. As the practice of meditation develops into spontaneous beingness that transcends all states, grace emerges. It is important to listen to your intuition and maintain a steady stare during the storm until you see the sun rising again, because dawn is a process that takes time but will eventually arrive. The grasp that the ego has on our perception begins to weaken as we advance through the stages of inner labor. This makes it possible for moments of clarity, joy, and surrender to break through the noise. As we become aware of the transient character of false self-concepts that are constructed on the basis of external circumstances, they begin to disintegrate. In the process of revealing the exquisite beauty of the cosmic dance, the soul is able to see the actual inspiration that lies behind all forms. All of a sudden, the realization of death transforms every experience into something that is completely holy, endowing the present moment with the highest possible spiritual potential. Karmic patterns that have been held for multiple incarnations gradually unravel, so opening portals of graceful connectivity to dreams that have been envisioned, people that have been met, and destiny that has been revealed. Something that was once thought to be random or chaotic starts to fit together flawlessly like puzzle pieces, revealing a magical order that was before hidden. Inner shamans, mystics, monks, and yogis materialize within our vision, constructing an esoteric spiritual council that distributes heavenly insights that have been won through arduous effort in order to direct the energy of life toward achieving noble goals. The ordinary world seems to be moving more and further away, turning into a realm that is primarily composed of shadows, while the real world is becoming more and more magnetizing from within. During the process of the awakened intelligence of the cosmos, reshaping all perception, towering waves of insight, foresight, spiritual fire, and overflowing love descend in an uncontrollable manner. Tears are a cleansing agent for the soul, allowing for profound moments of inner communication that transcend language. A ubiquitous hum of background creativity electrifies a subtle field uniting worlds into a stunning synchronicity that was previously thought to be impossible. As ideas of the past and the future disintegrate, the only thing that remains is the perfection of the here and now, which is dancing wildly while being completely still. During this time, the inner world expands tremendously, while the external reality contracts to the point where it can be dangled as a trinket ornament. Magic is created in life. At this point, the larger Shakti energies require a significant amount of time spent alone, integrating and functioning through a neurological system that has undergone significant transformation. The return of closure is indicated by excessive interaction that results in exertion or a feeling of depletion. The development of extreme sensitivity occurs on both a physical and emotional level, to the point that sensations that were before offensive become intolerable. For the sacred inner environment to be protected, regulated periods of solitude and rituals are required. These rituals should also strengthen personal energy barriers from the surrounding environment. As you continue on your spiritual path, you will come to realize that your physical body is undergoing a transformation, becoming a highly tuned instrument that is capable of transmitting and receiving immense powers that are not visible to the human eye. Despite the fact that your capacities at the ascended master level are still in the process of developing, you will discover that your connection to the divine is becoming stronger, which will enable you to tap into the seemingly endless potential of the cosmos. Continue to remain concealed and silent, ensuring that you have mastered each stage before engaging with too many people too soon. We are reborn like a phoenix from the ashes of our previous selves, as we emerge from the unrelenting darkness of the night of the spirit. There is a deeply uplifting serenity that transcends conditions, and all clinging to surface ego desires is lifted. An intensification of divine intimacy occurs, which ultimately becomes a soul motive that drives the flow of consciousness. The relevance of our relationships with the world around us diminishes, and our connection to the everlasting oneness becomes the only thing that truly matters. At this point, the need is satisfied, since the union with the eternal spirit satisfies all of the minute desires, which are little in contrast. Through each and every glance, the mythical bride and groom become one, their contrasting qualities dancing together in a joyful harmony. When one's inner sight is unclouded, it reveals that every being is a brilliant and one-of-a-kind fragment of the same fractal light. The secret chambers, which were formerly empty, but are now fully brimming with revelation, are filled with divine fellowship. Once silence becomes the norm, it carries more truth than what can be conveyed by voice. It is vital to physically withdraw into seclusion in order to escape the sensory overload and excessive exertion that this situation causes. When one is intentionally channeling a big force, energy conservation becomes an extremely important factor. The realization that the infinite intellect wears transient mass and appears in ever-shifting forms causes ego projections onto gurus or spiritual instructors to disintegrate. There is no true wisdom master who has feelings of separation. It is possible that we will have feelings of being overwhelmed and isolated from others when our spiritual progress outpaces our ability to assimilate it. Because of this, we may feel the need to maintain a physical distance from connections that are too intimately associated with our previous identity. Instead of being ruled by our brain, override our inner guidance assists us in establishing new boundaries that are in accordance with the integrity of our soul. At this point, we are free to explore, relying solely on creativity as our guide, and we do not have any predetermined duties or expectations. In the process of undergoing an internal transformation, we acquire the fortitude and bravery to confront any circumstance with a sense of inner serenity and equilibrium. We are fully committed to assisting mankind in reawakening to its actual potential, and we believe that fierce compassion is the most effective method to eliminate any lingering concerns or uncertainties. Our love for the divine that resides inside all beings serves as our guiding force, and the only thing that we dread is the tiny uncertainty that may still be present within us. Finally, we have arrived at the pinnacle where our psychological interpreter, the ego, has dissipated, and we have come to the realization that our true nature is that of a complete, indivisible, and oneness consciousness. We are no longer distinct persons. Rather, we have melted into the beingness of the oceanic joy. At this point, the stage of the theater has been closed, and we are left with no place to stand as spectators. We have transformed ourselves into a natural, unwavering consciousness that is devoid of any deficiencies. Effortlessly, we vanish completely, and constellations that were once sketched out vanish like sandbox drawings seen before bedtime. As ancient memories awaken, the dreamer begins to remember a truth that was never truly lost. This boundless, non-dual awareness has always been here, unchanged, untouched by external conditions. There was never a moment when nothing became everything. All that ever happened was the lifting of veils, revealing the light that was always shining behind the clouds of illusion. Existence in this light becomes self-evident, whether as divine ecstasy, silent witness, or fleeting phenomena. Like a cosmic dancer yearning for new steps, consciousness seeks to experience itself anew. When spiritual joy becomes too expansive to contain, the soul returns to the world of form, not out of duty but delight. Every shape, every mirror, every moment becomes a celebration of awareness, reflecting itself from a fresh angle. Just as the ocean breathes in tides of form and formlessness, so too does manifestation ebb and flow. We descend into time-bound bodies woven into personal stories and linear lives, but now with remembrance. Even as unity appears to shatter into fragments, we do not forget our source, deathless, formless, eternal. And in that awareness we play, We mold the clay of experience not to escape reality, but to honor it as divine artisans, shaping the sacred from the mundane. Each role we embody becomes a living gift to the theater of life. Though we move through space and time, we remain rooted in direct gnosis, the inner knowing of eternity. We dance between the joys and sorrows of life, yet hold to neither. In this balanced flow, a deeper beauty emerges, saturating every experience. This is the unfolding of the 7 stages of Kundalini awakening. Even as life dazzles and rushes, the stillness within remains untouched. Passion and peace no longer battle, they merge. The divine no longer stands apart from the world it plays within it, unrestrained. From this union springs an overflowing abundance, like a river breaking its banks and nourishing all it touches with endless creative potential. Here, spontaneous action becomes the soul's evolution in motion. Consciousness expands beyond old identities, shining ever more clearly as its infinite luminous self. The Kundalini journey is a sacred refinement, a fire that burns away separation and reveals the indivisible truth of being. As we walk this path, let us see life not as a problem to solve, but as a spiritual symphony to experience both the dissonance and the harmony contributing to our soul's awakening. This inner power calls us upward beyond stagnation, asking us to remember in divine reality nothing was ever broken, nothing ever needed fixing, only awakening.